you for tuning in to this week's episode of Sophisticated Sunday. I'm going to be your reader / co-host for today. My name is Negzo, and this is my other co-host.
Osun.
My other co-host. Let's do it over. Fuck. I'm sorry. I fucked it over. Sorry, my bad. Hi, and thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Sophisticated Sunday. I'm going to be your reader / host for today, Negzo, and this is going to be my co-host,
Priestess Osun Funke.
and she's not to be fucked with.
Not at all.
So in this week's episode, we're going to be talking to you all about mental illness, and we're going to be talking about mental illness in the context of African spirituality and what it is that an initiation can do to help your help your mental illness. And what it is that just being in a community of African spiritualists can do to make you feel more centered in the outside world. So I wanted to lead in with this question, which is, what do you think are the benefits of someone having so let's say somebody has a mental illness. What are their benefits? How do they benefit from participating in African ancestral worship with other African spiritual practitioners?
Well, the first thing that I would say is a lot of what is deemed mental illness is actually just spiritual phenomenon.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in the society that we live in, Western society, I don't think that a lot of credence or weight is given to those spiritual phenomena because everybody ain't able,
Mm-hmm.
And so if I'm not a particularly melanated person and I practice no ancestral worship, it's not even a part of my historical practice or understanding or familial practice or understanding, then for a person to hear voices, experience spirit or communication from spirit, I don't really know how to deal with that. It's not a part of my reality, and so therefore I'm going to say that this person is having abnormal neurological experiences,
Mm-hmm.
meaning they're crazy. And I think that happens a lot.
Yeah. So, I mean, we get people that, people like a lot of our clients do have mental illnesses,
Mm-hmm.
and we're always encouraging for them to seek out help within our community and
Right.
to, further integrate themselves into African spirituality. So that leads me to asking you, have you ever seen this benefit someone that has initiation or African, being part of an African spiritual practice? Have you seen it firsthand benefit people?
I have.
Can you tell us about that?
I have seen people who are empaths, for example, who pick up on energy very readily and very strongly, and their mood is often impacted by the energy that they come in contact with. I've seen people go from being a person who has, I guess, what would be deemed a mood disorder. I've seen, go from being one who's very anxious, almost like agoraphobic, hating to go into public and be around a lot of different energies. I've seen someone actually, and not even initiate, but become part of an African spiritual community and begin to learn and understand how spirit moves through people and understand their particular gifts. And I've seen them flourish.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
What about people that are schizophrenic?
So I don't have any personal experience. I do know. Okay, I don't have any personal experience of a person being schizophrenic and actually following through with becoming involved or initiated. But I have made that recommendation on more than one occasion for people who were having what would be considered schizophrenic episodes.
Mm-hmm.
One young man in particular, he was about 19, which is when schizophrenia often shows up, in males. And he started seeing dead people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what he told me when I talked to him. He said, I see dead people, just like the dude on the movie. And I was just like, really? And he started explaining his experiences. And I told him that he needed to initiate because he needed to be under the care and protection of someone who was trained to deal with that and to walk him through it and to help him understand why this was a part of his destiny, this phenomenon that he was experiencing.
And so that's another thing that I wanted to talk about, which was having, people that have mental illnesses, knowing that they're under the care of people that can and are specialized to help them. So what do you think is the difference between someone going to a therapist or a psychiatrist or a psychologist versus going to see you or someone like your Baba?
Well, I think the main thing is that we are not, and when I say we, I'm talking about professionals in the African spiritual community. We are not necessarily looking for problems. We're looking for alignment, And our goal is to always align individuals with their destiny. So if you come to me and you are experiencing a particular pattern of phenomena, then I'm going to understand that to be significant, but not an indication that something is wrong, an indication that this is for you. You get what I'm saying? And then we will investigate it and address it accordingly. Okay, this is actually happening to you. It's not a product of your imagination.
Right.
What does it mean? What is the purpose of it?
Right.
And how will it better you? Because I am a firm believer in the fact that everything is for our good. Everything that happens to you is for you, I like to take the mantra of the Divine Prince. He is a New Orleans voodoo practitioner, and his personal mantra is, all is truly and indeed a blessing. And the first time I heard him say that, it really struck me, and I love that because I believe that all things are truly and indeed a blessing, even when they don't feel that way. Everything that happens to us is for us. Or like the Bible says, all things work together for the good, of those who love the Lord. So if you believe that, then you know that if you are seeing dead people, it's not because your mind is turning against you or your Ori is rogue all of a sudden and you're losing your mind. You have to think, what is the purpose of this? Why is this happening to me? What am I supposed to do with this? What is the good in this for me? So then you look at the other side of that to answer your question. What is the difference between a therapist? Well, if you walk into a therapist's office and you say, okay, I see dead people, they're going to say, well, that's not possible because dead people are dead. So what's wrong with your mind that's making you think that you're seeing dead people because nobody else is seeing dead people? You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That's the difference.
Right. So I was thinking to myself, like in my own experience, that a lot of we get clients all the time that have underdeveloped intuitive abilities, and they run the gamut. So speaking specifically to the clients whose abilities are underdeveloped and they suffer from a mental illness, I want to let them know that their gifts are not their mental illness, so to speak. Like, just because you're mentally ill doesn't mean that your gift is overdeveloped, underdeveloped. It just means those are two separate arenas. Like, some people that don't suffer from mental illness have underdeveloped gifts. You know what I'm saying? But I do think that the difference between a psychiatrist or a psychologist and your Baba would normally be that the psychiatrist and psychologist is looking to see, what are there some cultural elements to are there some cultural factors to the experiences this person is having, such as, if you're from Haiti, of course you may, hear voices because you're a reader. That's a cultural phenomenon. That's what you do as a part of the practice, versus people that deal with mental illnesses and they're hearing voices that are instructing them to do opposite to what their destiny, opposite to what they would have in their heart or what their destiny would want for them to do.
Do you think that the average psychologist, your average family therapist on Main Street in any city USA, is actually considering the cultural environment that a person is coming from?
Yeah, they do. They're trained. They're trained to. It's just that.
I mean, I understand what you're saying in theory, but it does not resonate with my spirit that I would walk into a therapist's office and say, I've been having conversations with my grandmother who passed away when I was 6, I don't think that that therapist is even going to consider the bloodline and the culture that comes out of. I think that, I don't know. I don't.
No, I mean, they're not going to look at it from an African-centered perspective. They're not going to see it and understand it the way that we understand it, but the way that they would understand it is, you know, this person's this person is in contact with some astral or some form of psychic phenomenon, and whether it's real or it's perceived, we have to think about, is this astral entity influencing this person to cause harm to themselves or to cause harm to society in some regards.
Mm-hmm.
So the cultural elements of it, this person may not, the psychiatrist or the psychologist may not themselves believe in the paranormal, but they know that other people believe in the paranormal. Now the style in which people express their experiences with the paranormal, whether it be through ancestral worship or just doing traditional psych. Bonjour, I'm Pastor Dr. Quintari Shakir, otherwise known as Negrezo. Good mentorship is incredibly hard to find. Here on YouTube, you have lone witches, fake-ass psychics, and all these other people that are going to lead you to nowhere. But with me, you can get one-on-one mentorship by going to www.blackspectrumnetwork.com. Psychic work, that's going to be determined by the person that's coming into the office. But no, when it comes down to and we were having this discussion the other day, but there's definitely a spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking about my friend that my old friend that
Mm-hmm.
dealt with mental illnesses. I do think an initiation would help them.
Mm-hmm.
But when we think about Peach Blossom's client that she was mentioning
Mm-hmm.
yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
that's what I'm saying. I think the psychiatrist is pretty much trained to handle Peach Blossom's client.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not so much my client. Maybe not so much my friend, where they want to give this person a round of therapy sessions, tell them to stay on their medication, and which they do, but that person needed more than that. That person needed spiritual baths, they needed a spiritual cleansing. So I don't feel like that the psychiatrist is, because they're not knowledgeable of the needs of an Afrocentric person, they can't advise you in the way that your Bible would.
Mm-hmm.
They can help you to cope with being a civilian. They can help you to intellectually rationalize some of your experiences, but that's only gonna get you that's only gonna do but so much. You can only understand 80% of your life. The other 20% that's unknown, people are still confused about this. So I do and I don't. I think that I have a belief in our American education. I have a belief in our American professionals that specialize in the area to take care of people.
See, I have no confidence, and I'm largely mistrusting of the medical, pharmaceutical, financial complex that is American healthcare. So.
No, I mean, and that's no. So I think when we're criticizing the pharmaceutical company and the field of psychiatry, they work hand in hand.
Absolutely.
With each other, because
Absolutely.
the psychiatrist prescribes the drugs from
the pharmaceutical companies.
But the typical psychologist, the people that work in healing fields that are absent,
and they don't prescribe medications usually.
Right.
Yeah.
I definitely think that we do a great deal of service to the general population, but for I do understand your skepticism around people that are prescribing medical drugs or have business relationships with pharmaceutical companies,
or even people who are trained to diagnose phenomena as disease. I have a problem with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have a problem with that.
Can
because,
you explain what that means?
Well, I mean,
like what phenomenon?
Well, y'all know what a phenomenon is, right? A phenomenon is an event that is not normal, not an everyday occurrence, that is somewhat awe-inspiring or maybe even divine in nature.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, doctors are not. So, my younger sister is a doctor. And I have other medical professionals in my family, and I know for a fact that doctors only take 1 or 2 classes on nutrition. So that tells you everything that you need to know about the medical field in this country, because food is medicine. Food is also poison. And so if doctors are not being taught about nutrition, if they're in school for 8 years and they take 3 months worth of classes of that 8 years on nutrition, that's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
It's ridiculous. They're not equipped. They're not equipped to address illness. What they do is treat symptoms with pharmaceuticals.
Yeah, I mean, most medical doctors aren't. I mean, when we think about the coursework that they missed, they're not. They recently, I think it was like in 2012, where they started requiring medical students take sociology courses.
Mm-hmm.
So, the average medical practitioner is not even familiar with. They're not culturally competent. Like, there's a difference between the field of public health and then the field of like medicine, where you have public, here in Atlanta, you have the public health practitioners that are pushing for marginalized communities to be on PrEP, for example. But that's different than a doctor, which won't prescribe PrEP. A doctor doesn't have to be brushed up on the education for that. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So it's left up to the people with the MPHs who don't have access to those sort of pharmaceuticals to just get the word out and pressure the community to ask their doctors about it. But their doctor doesn't, I don't want to say this because I don't know, but their doctor may or may not prescribe it to the patient. So that being said, it's a lot that doctors are not culturally competent about, and I would definitely, but that's why I said that, typically there are some general areas that they're going to know, like, okay, this person's hearing voices, they're experiencing this is probably cultural given, their occupation, so on and so forth. But in the instances outside of those, like, where they have to typologize people or categorize people outside their general knowledge, no, they're not ready to deal with the average person from YouTube.
Right.
So, okay, so my next question would be, how exactly does initiation help with one's mental illness?
So what I'm having trouble with this whole line of questioning is, what type of mental illness are you talking about? And what are we considering mental illness?
Well, I mean, that is controversial in itself. Like, I feel like that's mental illness is one of those very fuzzy concepts, because it's like what was considered to be mentally ill in the 1970s is not considered to be mentally ill today.
Well, let me address it like this.
Yeah.
Because I definitely don't want to give you any room to be insensitive. I'm just teasing you.
Mm-hmm.
But let me address it like this. I feel like in Ifa, for example, we will open the Auricle, okay?
Right.
You will have a reading, and Ifa, the divine messenger, will give you your destiny, a portion of your destiny that applies to your life at this time, okay? And in that information, it will explain what you are experiencing. It will tell you things that are to come. It may even give you a little bit of information about what brought you here. But most importantly, it's going to give you information about the things that you need to avoid, okay? The adversaries and interruptions and roadblocks that you might experience in the upcoming season. So it's going to give you that information, and then also an opportunity to neutralize those things, okay? And so, and this is all spiritual. You get what I'm saying? And so, if you know what difficulties you are about to face, even if it is something of a mental nature, we give you the solution to fix it.
And
that doesn't involve taking drugs. It doesn't involve sitting through countless hours of expensive therapy. It involves prayer, the invocation of deity, and the appeasement of those deity. And then you're done.
Yeah, but you can also think of the divination session as a therapy session as well.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so, because it's important for, because it's all the same energy. It's just who's. It is. It is the same energy. I
don't agree with that.
Well, I can understand why you wouldn't agree with that, because it's not definitely those two souls don't have this.
Ifa. If you're sitting in a therapist's office and she is pulling down information that she is remembering from textbooks or classes or even her experience in the field, it may apply, it may be helpful, but it's not Ifa.
Yeah, but that's what I was gonna say was, the
fuel my fire, take me higher, I'll be your liar too. 'Cause when we're here, there's nothing better than the skyline